Their spirits were sunken and low. Their bags weighed more than a ton. There was neither sign nor show when the bull began his run. Their shields were shilling wall to wall. The gig was up, they had their fun, and every short got a margin call when the bull began his run. The candle's green came fast and tall. Each wick was bold, quick to stun. His eyes burned red and his horns did moan when the bull began his run. Now fortune smiles upon the need. His bags of gold gleam in the sun. The outer stream of his balanced sheet, and every bear is left with none. Since the bull began his run.
Welcome Bitcoin friends, it's Bitcoin Mamo. Today we're going to look at the Bitcoin charts, we'll do some TA, we'll look at various time frames, also look at market Cipher. Seeing some interesting things there. Bitcoin's been a little bit volatile the last couple of days. So we'll look at, is Bitcoin going to continue higher or are we going to expect a pullback? So let's get straight into the charts. This is the 2-week chart for Bitcoin. As you can see, we have this triangle pattern drawn here. We also have this longer term trend line just connecting these lows. So far it seems like this pullback here to 39k, that this could be a bottom here. So I do have this white line drawn here, making this smaller triangle pattern. We were looking at these order blocks here on the 2-week chart. These are areas of supply and demand. There were buyers and sellers here in an uptrend, so these become of interest later on. We can see it did act as resistance here. We got a pullback and now we're coming back into this 2-week order block. We are currently above this order block, but this candle won't close until the start of next week. Looking at the VPVR here, the amount of volume traded at certain price levels, we can see that we have a lot of volume in this area. And currently we are just on the edge of the main area of these volume spikes. We can see there's not much resistance above here. And the next area of resistance would be in line with this order block. So we are quite close to breaking above this area on the volume profile, and also would correspond with breaking this trend line on this triangle. So we did open a new 3-week candle this week, so we will have a look at that chart. And what's interesting to note on the 3-week chart, when we connect the tops, we can see that we are touching the top of this trend line. But there are almost 3 weeks before we close this candle, not until the 25th of October. So we'll watch this trend line on the smaller time frames on the weekly and the 2-week and even the daily. Onto the weekly chart now, we can see we pulled back into the EMA ribbon, did act as support, we pushed higher. We can see that VPVR here on the weekly. You can see the biggest spikes here, and we are currently above them. So similar reading as the 2-week there. We also had that bump and run pattern with this yellow trend line, tested it for support, and we got a nice bounce off it. So I do think we are going to see us break this white trend line quite soon. The top of this trend line is around 51,000 on the weekly, and we have just opened this new weekly candle. We also have these order blocks drawn here in blue. This yellow order block is the 2-week order block we showed. We can see we had this green candle here in the downtrend, and we did have this strong weekly bounce, and we did manage to close above this order block, which is a very good sign for the bulls. And in the current week, we did come down to test it again. We came down to 46.9, and it has acted as support. So I don't think we are going to go below this order block now at 46,000. I think this is the lowest Bitcoin would go now on a pullback. And we can see we are testing this second order block with this red candle in the uptrend. And currently we are battling it. We do have a whole week left before we close this candle. But above here, there are no more weekly order blocks. And again, we are getting close to breaking that triangle pattern. Looking at the stochastic RSI, we're at a 60 reading. We did see this small tick up here after this bounce. Looking at the RSI, we were watching this blue box here, which acted as support all the way in the 2016-17 bull run and the start of this bull run after the stock market crash recovery. We can see we danced with this line. We did close higher on the last weekly close. It's a very good sign for the bulls. Also above this red trend line when connecting these two tops here. And also just have a blue trend line connecting the overall tops. And we are pretty much touching that trend line at the moment. But as I said, we have the whole week left to close this candle. But everything's looking really good for the bulls. Looking at the daily chart now, I've still got that large triangle pattern drawn. And we were in this falling wedge pattern here. We did break to the upside. And looking at the VPVR here on this move from 29k to 53k, we can see we are currently above the biggest spikes here on the VPVR. So if we can keep using this as support, it's a very good sign for the bulls as we do push towards this top trend line, which on the daily chart is at around 50,743, and by tomorrow would be a little bit lower, around 50,650. And looking at this falling wedge pattern here, I did want to compare it to a previous falling wedge. And looking at it here in this uptrend, after we broke the 20k level, which was a 2017 peak, we had this nice run up to 40,000, had a pullback, made this falling wedge pattern. We can see once we broke above it, we did have a few red candles here, but then we did really take off once we did break that previous high. So I do think we're doing something similar here. And once we break this white trend line of the triangle, and also this previous all-time high, we're really going to take off quite quickly to that 2-week order block. What we can also see here is doing the fib retracement from this 53k top to the 40k bottom here. You can see the golden pocket here, and we did get some resistance here for several days, and currently we are above that golden pocket area. The day hasn't closed yet though, so we'll have to see how the daily closes. But this is looking really good for the bulls. These yellow order blocks here are the weekly order blocks that we had drawn in, and these blue ones are the daily order blocks. So we can just see we're getting it from this red candle in an uptrend, and these ones come from further back in February, March. I won't go over that as I have in many previous videos. This green candle here is this order block in this downtrend. So I thought we might come back to this order block and get a bounce here. We did get close. We came down to around 46.9, but we have had this strong bounce. And we are above this first order block here in blue. Well, of course, we have to still close this candle off the daily. And we're also testing this second order block here. Above here, there is this thin order block, which is just this red candle. But we can see after that, there's not much resistance when looking at order blocks till we get to 51.6. And that would be above this white trend line. And I think there'd be quite a bit of FOMO here as we do break this major triangle pattern. Looking at the stochastic RSI, we are quite high. We are pretty much at 100 reading. Can stay up here for a while like we did in this occasion. And quite often we do spend time up here, whether we have some small dips, but we don't usually get a big pullback straight away. So I do think we're going to spend a few days here, possibly test the top of this white trend line and maybe play around with it for a bit, whether we break it on the first occasion or have a pullback first. Looking at the RSI, was watching this trend line with these two tops. We're not quite at that trend line yet, so we'll have to see how we correspond with that. And that might line up also when we are testing this major triangle trend line. We will have to watch for any divergences between this high here and current price action. And that corresponds to this high here at around 52.8. And just quickly looking at the EMA ribbon, we can see it's starting to flip here. The yellow line is going above the red and the orange lines, and the top of this ribbon's at 45.6. Now that it has flipped, I think this will start moving up quite quickly here. And on any major pullback, I would always look to buy the top of this daily EMA ribbon. As I mentioned, I didn't get in a trade here from the 40,000 area. I was expecting one more pullback here, but we didn't get that. We didn't have that divergence I was looking for on the daily. So you can see we had higher lows on the RSI, higher lows on the price. We did actually have it on the 4 hour though. But I did miss that trade, and I did miss the break of this wedge. So I was looking for a trade here on any pullbacks, and I mentioned to watch the daily EMA ribbon and the 4 hour EMA ribbon, and I'd be looking to get in a trade if we came to the top of the 4 hour EMA ribbon. And just looking at the 4 hour now, we can see after this big pump here, we went sideways, allowed the 4 hour EMA ribbon to catch up. And as I said, I was looking for that pullback to this ribbon to get in a trade. And we did come into this ribbon and got this nice strong bounce. So it's looking quite good there. I was also watching this trend line here on the 4 hour RSI connecting the lows. I thought we might come back to this trend line, but so far looks like we've had this strong bounce. The 4 hour stochastic RSI also completely cooled off here in this sideways movement, and it's just starting to tick up. So plenty of room to go higher here on the 4 hour stochastic RSI. And looking for divergences on the 4 hour RSI here, we can see we had higher highs here on the price and lower highs on the RSI. That was bearish divergence, and we did have a pullback because of that. And now I'm watching for any other divergences here. So currently we do have a higher high on the price. This candle hasn't closed yet though. And we have a lower high on the RSI. So do need to see Bitcoin make a higher high here relative to this point, and then we won't have any bearish divergence. And with the stochastic RSI looking like this, with plenty of room to go up, gives me confidence that we're going to get above this red trend line and avoid that bearish divergence. You should also look for this point here for divergence on the RSI between this high and the new high we're forming. So it would be good to get above both of these levels and avoid all bearish divergence there. Looking at some moving averages now on the daily chart, we can see we're above all the major moving averages. We did almost pull back to the 50-day moving average. The 200 and the 21-day are lower down, so that's a good sign. We are above all major moving averages here. And looking at the Bitcoin futures chart now, we're also above the 50-day and the 200-day moving average. We had that golden cross on the 21st of September. It has taken a little bit to play out here, but we have seen some upside from it. We also see on the daily chart that the top of this triangle on the futures chart is at 50,800 approximately, and by tomorrow it'll be at 50,660. So we are very close to breaking this triangle pattern on the futures chart. And we could break this one before the spot price chart. And again, that could be an early indicator that we're going to also break it on the spot price chart. Looking at the stochastic RSI here, we can see it is still climbing higher. It's not as high as the spot price chart. So I do expect Bitcoin to carry on here for a few days and make an attempt at breaking this trend line. Looking at the RSI, we have room to go higher. I'm watching this trend line just connecting the tops. We're not quite to that trend line yet. And again, be looking for any divergence. So we did see a lot of volatility over the past day or so. And a way that you can pick up on when we might see a lot of volatility like that is by looking at the Bollinger Bands. So these are the Bollinger Bands on the 4 hour chart. This midline is basically the 20 moving average on the relative time frame you're on. And with the Bollinger Bands, Bitcoin generally spends, I believe it's 90 to 95% of the time in between these bands. So quite often when we do get above these bands, we do quite often come back inside the bands and quite often do come back to the midline. And if we don't bounce off the midline, then generally we do like to pull back to the bottom of the Bollinger Band As we can see here, we came to the top, broke the midline, came to the bottom. But sometimes the midline can act as a bounce area. As we can see here, we bounced off the midline and carried on higher back to the top. But looking at these Bollinger Bands, when they do squeeze together like this, it can indicate a big move is coming. And these Bollinger Bands got extremely close here. And we can see we swung up and we swung down at the same time from 46.9 to 48.6, all in that 4-hour candle. And now we have broken to the upside and these are starting to expand again. And just to show you that I did get into that trade here, I said I was waiting for that pullback to the 4-hour EMA ribbon. And this was also this weekly order block here. So I did get into a trade at 47,360. I started around 47.7 and layered them down. But I didn't put all of it into one trade here. I did expect possibly coming lower here to the 46,000 area. And we did have this other weekly order block and a daily order block, I do believe, here. So I thought we might come down to these areas and I had orders waiting to pick up more contracts. That allowed me a greater error on the trade rather than going all in at this level, even though that would have been a better decision. And this was at 10 times leverage, so it did allow my liquidation price to be all the way down around the high 43,000 area. And currently it's up around 38%. So what are we seeing on the market Cipher? So we have been coming down here on this blue wave as we went sideways. And currently we did get a green dot on the 4-hour here. And the money flow all looks good. The 6-hour looks quite similar. We did start coming down and we do have a green dot now also. And the money flow is good also. The only bearish thing on market Cipher I can see is on the 12-hour chart here where we do have this red dot. But it isn't confirmed yet till we do close the day. But almost every other time frame looks bullish. Know how effective that 12-hour dot may be. We can look at the time frames longer than that. So we can look at the daily. We can see the blue wave here on the dailies. Still is looking to push up here. It's not looking like it's starting to curl around yet. So we might see a red dot, then a green dot on the 12-hour. And the daily would be more significant to look for a red dot on a pullback. And the same thing goes looking on the 2-day to see how significant a red dot on the daily might be. And just by going through all the time frames like that, you can build up a bigger picture. So we can see on the 2-day, we got that green dot on the 30th of September. And this blue wave still coming up here. The money flow is good, about to cross the 0 line. So we can see that the higher time frames are starting to support the lower time frames. So those red dots on the long time frames will become a little bit less significant because these higher term time frames still have the momentum to the upside. The 3-day did open a new candle here on the 4th of October. We did get that green dot and the money flow is still in the red here, but it does look like it's starting to curve around. And it's quite good to see these tight blue waves with the green dot following a previous blue wave with a green dot that was a deeper cut. So this is quite bullish here. And the 4-day has just shown a green dot here. This opened on the 4th of October. This will be confirmed on the 8th of October. So we are seeing these green dots on almost every time frame here. And I think this is very bullish. And even on the 5-day chart, there is a green dot here similar to the 4-day. And this will be confirmed also on the 8th of October. But we can see all those daily time frames all have green dots. And when you see a red dot on the 12-hour, it doesn't seem so significant when these higher term time frames are only just starting to look like they're going to start pushing higher. Then the 6-day chart has a green dot here. And this will be confirmed on the 10th of October. So we don't often see that many green dots all lining up on those high term time frames. This is the weekly chart and we did get that red dot and now we do have a green dot currently. We do have the whole week left to go still, but we can see all the daily time frames and now the weekly has a green dot. And we were looking for that green dot when comparing to 2013 mid-cycle pullback that we've done on several videos. We said here this pullback here was similar to that pullback we had, that 50% drop. We got that green dot, we pushed higher, recovered from the mid-cycle pullback, got a red dot, and then a couple of weeks later got that green dot, and then we finished off the bull run. And we're looking for a similar thing. So we had that mid-cycle pullback, looked for the green dot, started recovering, we got that red dot, and now a couple of weeks later we've got that green dot. So very, very similar. And we can see at the end of the bull run here, which we're also looking at, you can see here after this pullback, we did get a green dot, a bounce, a red dot, but then that was it. We kept going down. So this is very similar to the 2013 mid-cycle pullback, as we've been mentioning in a lot of other videos. And the 2-week chart did get that green dot previously. There's no red dot there. And we did just open a new 3-week candle here. What we can see is we have the green dot, red dot, green dot. So a little bit indecisive. And we were a bit worried when looking at the end of the 2013 bull run here, where we had that green dot and then a red dot. And then we did come down. So this is looking quite good here. And we'll have to see how this plays out over 3 weeks with this green dot. But with all those daily green dots lining up with each other, I think Bitcoin's ready to break that triangle pattern and really start to make some big moves in October. And just to show you that all-in-one chart, this is the daily chart on top, the 2-day, the 3-day, the 4-day, and the 5-day. We see all those green dots lining up, as we talked about previously when we only had a couple of green dots. I said I want these to flow onto each other, and I think that momentum will just keep flowing on and we'll continue to push higher. We did compare that to 2013 mid-cycle pullback, had these green dots flow on from each other from the 1-day to the 5-day. And as we mentioned, that was during this period in this mid-cycle pullback in 2013, around this area. We can see once we got all those green dots, we really started taking off here. We finished off the bull run going into the end of November. So similarly to currently, we had the mid-cycle pullback, which I believe it is, and all these green dots appearing in this time frame here from the 1-day to the 5-day. So I do expect a similar thing to 2013, and we will finish off this bull run with a similar explosion to this run up here. And again, that comparison with 2013, this is the 3-week chart. We have 2012, 2013 here on the top and the current cycle. We see these dots line up, the green dot here, the green dot here. Back in April of 2020, we had this red dot here, quite similar to 2013. The green dot came a little bit early. The red dots were at the same time on this mid-cycle pullback. And now we have these green dots here on the 3-week chart also lining up. So if we were to line up with this red dot here, this red dot appeared 30th of December, but of course this bull market did end at the end of November. So you could see a very similar thing ending at the end of November in this cycle, and also that red dot at a similar time at the end of December. And one last comparison here, this is 2012, 2013 again on the left, and the current cycle. The top row is the 1-week chart. The second row, the 2-week, third row, the 3-week, and the fourth row, the monthly. So what we can see, this was the mid-cycle pullback in 2013 with this red dot. We see the red dots flow on from each other here, from the 1 week to the monthly. And then we got the green dot on the weekly. We started recovering from that mid-cycle pullback. Got the green dot on the 2-week. We carried on higher. We got the green dot on the 3-week, and then finally the monthly. And that was 1 month away from the peak here at the end of November. But we see a similar thing here on the mid-cycle pullback. We started getting these red dot on the weekly back in February, and they flowed on from each other, going all the way to May. On the red dot on the monthly, we had that big mid-cycle pullback, and then we got this green dot on the weekly. It started the mid-cycle pullback recovery. Like this green dot here, we got this bounce, we got a green dot on the 2-week and then the 3-week. We had that red dot followed by the green dot similar to this on the weekly, and these green dots are flowing on from each other. Very, very similar. Looking for that green dot on the monthly. Perhaps when we see that, it'll give us an indication there's 1 month left in the bull cycle. So just want to compare both of those. They are very, very similar, and I think a similar thing's happening. So I think that's about all. Hope you enjoyed that analysis. Everything's looking good for the bulls. This is the key trend line to watch. And we also have that golden pocket on the overall retracement. I think on this second testing, we can break above it. We did have an initial pullback here. So we'll keep watching the charts, see what happens. Everything is bullish. Looking at all those green dots on the daily gives me a lot of confidence that we're going to break this key trend line and make a run sometime this month to this second order block in the mid 55 to high 50,000 area. So thanks for watching again. I'm Bitcoin Mamo. I'll see you next time. Bye.